Hey guys. Tonight, the wind hums across an endless plain, carrying the sharp scent of snow, smoke, and fermented milk. You sit near a flickering fire in the middle of the steppe, wrapped in fur so heavy it creaks when you move. The stars above are so bright they feel close enough to drink. Beside you, a Mongol warrior pours something white and foamy into a wooden bowl, smiling with the kind of warmth that usually means trouble. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. He hands you the bowl. It smells like a horse barn and sour apples. The liquid inside, airag, fermented mare's milk, bubbles, faintly as if alive. You take a sip, and the taste hits like yogurt and thunder. Around you, laughter rises. The night smells of sweat, smoke, and something wild. This was how the Mongols celebrated, mourned, bargained, and occasionally started wars, one drink at a time. Tonight, we'll wander through the tents, taverns, and battlefields of the Mongol Empire to discover how people got wasted on the steppe, what they drank, why it mattered, and how it turned an empire of horsemen into history's rowdiest nomads. So, settle close to the fire, breathe the cold air, and try not to spill your aireg. You'll need it. The first thing you feel is the wind. It cuts through your layers of fur like a quiet blade, dry and endless. The Mongolian steppe stretches in every direction, flat, pale, infinite. There are no trees, only grass, whispering secrets under hooves. The sky dominates everything, vast and cold, so wide it makes you dizzy to stare at it. Here, silence isn't absence, it's the sound of distance itself. You smell the steppe before you see its life. The faint tang of horse sweat, the musky aroma of damp leather, the faint sweetness of trampled grass. This was the scent of home for millions of hooves and heart. The Mongols grew up breathing it, their lungs shaped by wind instead of walls. Their thirst was constant, not for water, but for warmth, motion, and a taste strong enough to fight the cold. When you finally stop moving, you notice the dryness in your throat. Water is precious here, often frozen or fouled. Alcohol, however, especially fermented milk, stays liquid even when the world ices over. So, the Mongols turned to their herds for both food and drink. Mare's milk became more than sustenance, it was spirit, literally and figuratively. The first sip of airag wasn't pleasant to the uninitiated. It fizzed, it soured, it fought back. But after the shock, warmth crept up from your stomach like a sunrise beneath fur. It wasn't about taste, it was about survival. When the steppe froze and the rivers hid under ice, this cloudy liquid reminded people they were still alive. You imagine the first rider to discover fermentation by accident, a skin of milk left too long in the sun, sloshed by galloping, transforming into something alive and buzzing. That first sip must have been confusion, then courage, then revelation. Civilization had wine, the steppe had motion, and motion had milk. Drinking here wasn't a pastime, it was rhythm. After long rides, after hunts, after storms, always a bowl shared, always laughter thick with exhaustion. Alcohol filled the space between hunger and song. It burned the cold from bones. It connected riders to something larger than themselves, each other, the herd, the earth that demanded endurance. The landscape itself seemed to drink with them. Rain rarely fell, but when it did, the smell of wet grass carried miles. Horses shook their manes, the world exhaled, and for a few days the plains shimmered green. In those moments, people celebrated. To live here was to toast whenever nature softened her glare. At night, the horizon disappeared completely, leaving only stars. The steppes' darkness wasn't empty, it was crowded with sound, hooves shifting, tents creaking, the wind sighing across leather. In the middle of that vast silence, a fire and a bowl of fermented milk felt like defiance. The Mongols didn't drink to forget, they drank to remember that the world, despite its cruelty, could still feel warm inside the chest. The burn of alcohol mirrored the burn of endurance. The taste of sourness turned into comfort, like laughter at the edge of suffering. You can almost see it, a circle of riders under the night sky, steam rising from their breath, each sip turning strangers into brothers. The steppe had no walls, no taverns, no vineyards, just sky and the will to stay standing beneath it. Tomorrow, the same wind would return, the same horizon would stretch forever, and the same thirst would rise again. But for tonight, with the bowl in your hand and warmth blooming inside you, the steppe feels almost merciful. Almost. Soon, you'll see how the Mongols carried this wild, intoxicating heart with them, across continents, into cities, onto thrones, and how milk would meet mead, and steppe would meet silk. The door flap opens, and a wave of warmth greets you. Inside the jur, the Mongol tent, everything feels alive. The air hums with smoke and milk, wool and sweat. A small stove glows red in the center, its chimney cutting through the ceiling like a sword toward heaven. The flicker of firelight turns the felt walls into soft, breathing gold. You feel safe here, cocooned against a landscape that never truly sleeps. The smell is unmistakable, sour milk, damp fur, burning dung. It should be unpleasant, yet somehow it isn't. It's the perfume of survival, of lives lived close to the body and the beast. The gur was both home and temple, where food cooked, horses were honored, and alcohol flowed like family. In one corner, a leather bag called a kukur hangs from the ceiling, half filled with mare's milk. It swells and deflates as someone beats it with a stick. The sound is rhythmic, steady, almost musical. This is how Erag is born, through motion, air, and patience. Every stroke churns wild yeast into life. You watch it sway and realize even their drink was nomadic. Children play near the hearth, their laughter mixing with the bubbling pot of milk and tea. The combination smells soft, sweet, earthy, comfort disguised as steam. The Mongols didn't build permanent kitchens, so every scent of food felt temporary, precious. Tonight's warmth might be tomorrow's memory. The father pours Erag into bowls carved from horn. His hands are rough, his knuckles cracked from rains and frost. He offers one to you first. Hospitality came before hierarchy. To refuse a drink inside a gur was unthinkable. To share one was a pact. You take a sip. It's cold at first, then warm going down, sharp but creamy, like yogurt that decided to misbehave. The family watches for your reaction and laughs when your face betrays the shock. They know. Everyone's first Erag tastes like confusion and courage. As the night deepens, stories begin. Some are legends of wolves and gods. Others, memories of raids and storms. Each story punctuated by a refill. The bowl circles clockwise, always clockwise, to honor the sky. You follow the motion, feeling the fire's heat against your cheek, the softness of felt under your hand, and the weight of history hidden in this small gesture. Outside, the wind howls against the tent. Inside, laughter answers it. The fire pops, sparks drift upward, and the kuhur keeps swaying from the ceiling, a heartbeat of the household. You realize that alcohol here isn't escape, it's architecture. It binds the cold, the people, the past into something almost musical. You feel drowsy, half-warmed, half-dreaming. The Mongols called the hearth the belly of the home. It was the place where both food and stories fermented. No one rushed, no one interrupted. Even time seemed to rest its head beside the fire for a while. By the time you step outside, the stars burn brighter, sharper, endless. The air bites your lips, but your chest still glows. Behind you, the family's laughter continues, muffled by felt. In this small circle of light, the world doesn't feel so large, or you so small. The gur fades into the night like a lantern carried by memory. You realize that here, warmth wasn't built, it was shared. And every bowl of airag, every smile, every spark of firelight was proof that even in the hardest landscapes, people still found ways to feel drunk on being alive. The sun rises pale and thin over the grasslands, light spilling across frost like silver dust. Your breath clouds in front of you. A pot of milk steams softly beside the fire, the surface shimmering. Fermentation wasn't luxury, it was necessity. Without it, milk spoiled too fast. And in a land that froze half the year, every drop mattered. The Mongols didn't invent fermentation, they perfected it out of need, not science. You watch as a woman stirs milk with a long wooden paddle. Her hands move without hesitation, muscle memory passed through generations. The smell sharpens, half sour, half sweet. Fermentation wasn't just chemistry, it was a quiet conversation with nature. Bacteria and yeast were invisible livestock, just as alive, just as important. Every drop of airag was alive, bubbling, breathing, changing with the day's warmth. That's what made it sacred. The Mongols believed that if the milk turned bitter, the spirits were displeased. If it foamed gently, fortune smiled. You realize how faith and fermentation shared the same logic. Unseen life making the visible world possible. A monk once wrote that the Mongols prayed to their milk before drinking it. They whispered thanks for its patience. It's easy to understand why. When your gods live in the sky and your food comes from the herd, gratitude becomes reflex. Every sip is both survival and ceremony. Fermentation wasn't limited to milk. They made drinks from rice, barley, honey, whatever travelers brought from conquered lands. The empire was a living brewery. Bottles of kumis rode beside scrolls, spices, and arrows. Knowledge fermented too, crossing borders one mouthful at a time. You take a bowl from the fire and sip carefully. The taste has changed since last night, softer now, with a faint fizz. The alcohol is mild, but the warmth spreads deep. It's the kind of drink that rewards patience, the kind that teaches you that everything alive, even milk, prefers time over haste. For the Mongols, fermentation was control, taming nature without breaking it. They didn't fence their cattle, didn't bottle their gods, didn't rush their milk. They believed life, like airag, should be stirred gently, not shaken. Maybe that's why their empire grew so quickly. They moved with the same patience as their drink. At feasts, they toasted with the same reverence as prayer. The first cup was always to the ancestors, poured into the earth. The second, to the sky. The third, to friendship, laughter, survival. You can almost hear the soft murmur of blessings blending with the crackle of the fire. To waste airag was sin. To drink it alone was misfortune. The bowl's circle mattered as much as its content. When it passed from hand to hand, it carried more than alcohol, it carried belonging. The warmth in your chest wasn't just chemical, it was communal. As the day brightens, the tent fills with steam and laughter. The smell of boiled milk hangs heavy in the air. Someone begins to sing, voice low and round, like a chant to the gods of bacteria and patience. You feel the rhythm settle into your bones. By the time the bowl reaches you again, the sun is higher and the world feels softer. You take a sip, tasting earth, air, and memory. It's not delicious, but it's honest. Every drink here tastes like effort disguised as calm. Soon, you'll learn how this patience, this rhythm of milk and wind, turned into celebration, and how the Mongols managed to find joy at the edge of hunger. The feast begins when the sun dips low and the air turns sharp enough to bite. Fires bloom across the camp like orange flowers against a sea of black. You can smell meat roasting, fat sizzling, smoke rising in lazy spirals. Horses snort nearby, tied to stakes, their breath glowing in the cold. Tonight, the steppe feels almost kind, like a mother pretending not to notice her children misbehaving. You sit cross-legged near the center, surrounded by riders shedding their armor. The sound of laughter and metal fills the air. Someone brings out a large leather bag, its surface pale, stained, alive. It sloshes when lifted. Airag, the good kind, fermented for days in the saddle, churned by motion and time. The first bowl goes to the eldest. He lifts it with both hands, eyes half closed, murmuring something to the sky. When he drinks, everyone cheers. The bowl passes on, circling clockwise like the constellations above. You take it, feeling its cool weight, and sip. It tastes wilder tonight, stronger, thicker, as if the horses themselves are laughing inside it. Music begins, low, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. A drum carved from hide, a fiddle made of horsehair. The melody floats like smoke, joining the laughter and the smell of roasting mutton. You can almost feel your heartbeat sinking to it. This wasn't just a feast, it was a ceremony of noise, where the steppe itself seemed to dance. Men shout stories of raids and hunts, exaggerating each detail until the impossible feels true. Every tale grows taller with every sip. You can tell who's drunk, their gestures wider, their laughter deeper. A culture built on precision loosens into one built on chaos, if only for a night. Someone stands and tries to sing a ballad, but forgets the words halfway through. Everyone applauds anyway. Another attempts to mount a horse, misses entirely, and ends up drinking more instead. Humor here isn't mean, it's collective. The steppe forgives foolishness, as long as it's shared. Food arrives in rounds, boiled meat, blood sausage, fat thick enough to spread like butter. You taste smoke and salt, sweetness from onions charred in the fire. It's messy and marvelous. The air buzzes with contentment, that warm blur where hunger, exhaustion, and laughter become one. At the edge of the circle, an old woman tends to the fire. She doesn't drink, but she smiles as others do. She knows the ritual. Every empire needs a night to laugh at itself before dawn demands order again. You catch her eyes briefly, and she nods as if to say, yes, this too is sacred. A young warrior stumbles and lands flat on his back, staring at the stars. He laughs so hard it echoes across the plain. You realize there's a kind of poetry in that, a people who conquered half the world, but still measure joy by how often they fall laughing into the grass. The music softens, the fire cracks. Some drift towards sleep, heads resting on saddles, cloaks pulled tight. The horses shift nearby, silent witnesses to human foolishness. You think the gods must smile at scenes like this, drunken mortals dancing between chaos and grace. The last thing you hear before sleep is someone murmuring an old toast. May your milk never sour, your horse never stumble, and your hangover never last. You smile. On this step, that's practically scripture. By morning, the fires will fade, the wind will return, and discipline will resume. But tonight, under the vast Mongolian sky, they let themselves be human, warm, reckless, and wonderfully alive. Morning comes too early on the steppe. The fire is ash, the air brittle. You wake with a mouth dry as dust and a head full of thunder. Your breath steams in the dawn. A hangover in the Mongol Empire wasn't a luxury, it was survival's price. The steppe doesn't pity the foolish, it just keeps blowing. You sit up slowly, every joint complaining. The smell of smoke and sweat clings to your clothes. Around you, the others stir, some groaning, some laughing. The warriors who could ride drunk could conquer sober. At least that's what they told themselves. Water is scarce, milk is safer. Someone hands you a bowl of sour tea, fermented, sharp, bitter. You drink because there's no other choice. It bites your tongue, then warms your belly. That's how the Mongols cured nearly everything, with heat, motion, and denial. Horses snort nearby, impatient. The herd smells of leather and life. A good horse didn't judge its rider's hangover. It simply carried him, steady and indifferent. You run your hand down its neck, feeling the muscle move under skin like living thunder. The touch alone clears your mind more than any medicine could. The Mongols treated their bodies like tools. Eat, ride, fight, drink, repeat. Yet they endured what would break most others. Their blood carried generations of wind and milk. Even their alcohol seemed to make them tougher, not weaker. You wonder if the secret wasn't the drink, but the laughter that always came with it. In the distance, the horizon blurs in white. Snow begins to fall, fine as dust. It melts on your skin, vanishing instantly. The cold burns clean through your fog. You realize that on this steppe, comfort isn't real. It's a temporary illusion, earned one bowl at a time. By midday, the camp comes alive again. Riders check saddles, sharpen blades, hum to their horses. No one complains. Complaining wastes breath. Instead, someone cracks a joke about falling off his horse twice, once drunk, once sober. Laughter rises like warmth from frozen ground. For the Mongols, pain was a companion, not an enemy. They drank not to escape it, but to greet it like an old friend. The burn in their throats mirrored the burn of their land, harsh, clean, unforgettable. You feel both as the cold wind licks your face. You chew dried meat, taste salt and smoke, and feel life return slowly. The steppe teaches patience through discomfort. The trick isn't to avoid it, but to sip it slowly. Like airag, the bitterness becomes warmth if you wait long enough. Someone hums a slow tune, low, deep, repetitive. It sounds ancient, like the wind remembering a melody. The song is about endurance, though no one needs to say it aloud. You realize that everything here, from the horses to the people, to the drink itself, exists to survive. The hangover fades, replaced by motion. You mount your horse, the world opening wide again. The sky stretches forever, the cold bites your cheeks, and you feel strangely clean. The body forgives the night with every breath. Behind you, the camp disappears into horizon and memory. Ahead, the wind waits, wild, patient, unending. You take one last sip from your flask and smile. The burn feels like life itself, and that, somehow, is enough. The day fades slowly, light thinning until the sky turns copper and smoke. You return to camp as fires spark across the plains. The yurts glow from within, golden against the blue. You can smell boiling milk and mutton fat. The cold retreats only for the brave and the drunk. Inside the largest jirai, a shaman tends to a bowl of milk under candlelight. The air hums with herbs, whispers, and something stranger. The Mongols believed spirits lived in everything that frothed: milk, fire, wind. To drink was to invite them closer. You sit quietly, the smell of sage clinging to your clothes. He pours a bit of airag onto the floor, murmuring words older than memory. The sound is rhythmic, like wind through bone. You watch the liquid soak into dirt, disappearing like an offering swallowed by the earth. Every drink began this way, with acknowledgement that the world was alive and watching. The Mongols didn't separate religion from routine. The same hand that fed the fire fed the gods. A sip for them, a sip for you. Balance, always. The bowl that passed among warriors also passed through rituals, marriages, and farewells. Alcohol wasn't vice, it was language. You take your turn. The bowl smells of smoke and milk, still warm from the fire. You lift it carefully, both hands steady, eyes low. To spill was unlucky. To drink without feeling was worse. You swallow slowly, the taste sour but soft. It burns briefly, then settles, a quiet heartbeat in your chest. The shaman smiles. His eyes gleam through the shadows, unreadable. He hums again, voice low, vibrating the air. The felt walls breathe in rhythm with it. You realize that even their intoxication was controlled chaos, ritual wrapped in reverence, disorder kept on a leash. Outside, the world darkens. The wind picks up, pressing against the walls. The candle flickers but holds. The shaman tosses another herb into the fire, and it bursts with color. The smoke smells sweet, then bitter, then sweet again. Everything here, even scent, seems to move in circles. In the corner, an old woman pours a small cup for herself. She doesn't pray, she just drinks, eyes closed, smile faint. Maybe prayer looks different after a certain age, less asking, more remembering. You nod quietly, and she nods back, the firelight trembling between you. The ceremony ends, but the air stays heavy with something sacred. People begin to laugh again, softly at first, then louder. The line between holy and human blurs completely. It always does. Eventually. The bowl circles one last time. You drink the dregs, warm, sour, alive. Outside, the stars appear one by one, reflecting in your cup before vanishing into darkness. You think that maybe the gods aren't above or below. Maybe they're in the aftertaste. The shaman finally sits, weary but smiling. Enough, he says. The word sounds final, but not stern. The kind of final that means peace. The fire settles into glowing embers, and you feel something shift, the air lighter, the body heavier, the mind drifting. You lie down beside the wall, half listening to the wind. The yurts rustle, the world hums softly. For the first time, you understand what drunkenness truly meant here. It wasn't losing control. It was surrendering to rhythm, to warmth, to belonging. The air inside the great tent is heavy with heat and expectation. The golden horde has gathered, and you can smell everything at once: smoke, sweat, meat, milk, fear. The center of the gyre burns bright with firelight, glinting off polished helmets and bowls of silver. At the far end, Genghis Khan himself sits cross-legged, silent, the bowl of ayrag before him trembling slightly in the flicker. The rule is simple: no one drinks before the Khan, but waiting feels eternal. The drink steams faintly in its bowl, alive and impatient. Around you, warriors breathe carefully, the sound of metal shifting under fur. Finally, Genghis lifts the bowl, his hand steady as stone. He drinks deeply, slowly, and the tent exhales as if the entire empire just remembered how to breathe. When he finishes, he wipes his mouth with his thumb and passes the bowl left. It moves clockwise, as the sun moves, as life moves. The Khan's drink isn't symbolic, it's command. If he drinks, the world follows. If he abstains, no one dares. Tonight, he drinks. The bowl circles, refilled endlessly, by servants who move like ghosts. The ayrag sloshes, foaming faintly under torchlight. Every sip carries permission, loyalty, and danger. You drink when your turn comes, feeling the warmth of something larger than alcohol, a kind of gravity born of obedience. For the Mongols, hierarchy was liquid. Power flowed through cups and bowls, not scrolls or signatures. To share a drink with the Khan was to share his breath, his fate, his legend. It wasn't politics, it was communion. You can taste it, sour and electric on your tongue. As the night deepens, stories erupt. Old generals recall battles fought in storms and deserts, each tale darker, bloodier, and funnier than the last. Genghis laughs, low, rare, terrifying. The others follow instantly, as if laughter itself were an order. The tent fills with sound, thunder in human form. When the musicians begin, the rhythm turns hypnotic. Drums pulse, flutes wail, and someone begins to sing an old war song about drinking victory from the skulls of enemies. It's gruesome and beautiful all at once. You realize the Mongols didn't fear death. They toasted it. The Khan's eyes glint like molten amber in the firelight. He drinks again, but slower now, thoughtful. For him, alcohol wasn't escape, it was calculation. The line between intoxication and insight was thin, and he balanced on it like a blade. When the bowl reaches you again, the ayrag tastes stronger, wilder. The warmth spreads fast, crawling up your throat, your face, your thoughts. You blink, and the fire doubles. You laugh softly, realizing that in this empire, even drunkenness had discipline. Outside, horses stamp the frozen ground, their breath rising in white clouds. Inside, the Khan raises his bowl one last time and pours a few drops onto the floor. To the land, he says, "It feeds us, it buries us." Then he drinks again, and the empire roars in unison. You sit quietly, dizzy and reverent. The tent feels like a living thing, walls pulsing, fire breathing, people orbiting around one man's calm gravity. You understand now that power, like alcohol, works best when it burns slow and deep. By the time the fire dies, no one remembers when the laughter stopped, only that it did. And in that silence, somewhere between loyalty and hangover, the empire feels eternal. The air smells different tonight. Spices, oil, and something floral drift through the camp. You follow the scent to a tent larger than any you've seen, foreigners inside, their silks shimmering like captured sunsets. Ambassadors, traders, priests, they came to make peace, to beg mercy, or to sell survival. Either way, they will drink. The Mongols greet them with bowls of airag before a word is spoken. Some hesitate, their noses wrinkling at the smell. Others sip politely, hiding the grimace behind diplomacy. You almost laugh. On this step, nothing tested character faster than fermented milk. A Persian envoy lifts his bowl awkwardly. "To friendship," he says, forcing a smile. The interpreter repeats it in Mongolian, and the warriors cheer. The Khan's men refill his cup instantly, and you know he's in trouble. Among Mongols, the faster your drink is replaced, the faster your dignity disappears. Negotiations flow like alcohol, fast, circular, unpredictable. Every toast is both promise and trap. "To peace," someone shouts. "To trade," another answers. "To horses," says a third, louder. By the fifth toast, the translations blur, and everyone's speaking the universal language of slurred laughter. The foreigners try to keep pace, but fail spectacularly. One Italian missionary hiccups through a speech about brotherhood before falling asleep mid-sentence. A Chinese merchant bursts into spontaneous song. The Mongols cheer them both. Hospitality, after all, meant humiliation with a smile. The Khan's envoys, meanwhile, remain eerily sober. They've trained for this. Alcohol diplomacy was warfare with different weapons. A steady drinker could outlast any ambassador, winning agreements one refill at a time. You realize that drunkenness here was theater, strategy disguised as chaos. Between toasts, trade happens. Silk for horses, spices for leather, gold for information. The clink of cups masks the exchange of power. You watch the Khan's men nod politely, agreeing to everything and nothing, their smiles as controlled as their sips. One foreigner, brave or foolish, requests grape wine instead. The Mongols oblige, grinning. The wine arrives strong and sweet, but they pour it into the same wooden bowls used for airag. The message is clear. On the steppe, even foreign gods drink milk. By midnight, the tent hums with heat and laughter. The fire crackles, shadows stretch long, and the smell of wine mingles with smoke. No one remembers the arguments, only the laughter that followed them. History, you realize, was often written by men who couldn't remember how the night ended. When the guests finally stumble out, the Mongols remain seated, serene. They've drunk more, spoken less, and somehow won everything. For them, diplomacy wasn't about persuasion, it was about endurance. The last man awake owns the future. The Khan's advisor raises a final bowl toward the dark. "To tomorrow," he says softly. The others echo him, voices rough but steady. You drink too, realizing that peace, like intoxication, is temporary, but worth savoring anyway. Outside, dawn glows faintly beyond the horizon. The foreigners are still asleep, faces buried in silk. The Mongols, somehow, are already saddling their horses. You laugh quietly. In this empire, hangovers were optional, but conquest was not. The night before battle always smelled the same: horse sweat, smoke, and alcohol. You sit among warriors sharpening blades, their hands steady despite the wind. The fire burns low, its light flickering against the curved edges of iron. In the center of it all, a bowl of airag waits. No one drinks yet. The silence is ritual. When the order comes, it's not shouted, it's poured. Each man takes a sip, eyes closed, head bowed. The airag tastes sourer than usual, heavier somehow. They say milk absorbs emotion. Tonight, it carries fear, resolve, and a bit of madness. You swallow and feel it spread through your chest like a slow fire. Mongols never went to war sober. Not out of recklessness, but balance. A few gulps steadied the mind, loosened the jaw, and quieted the ghosts of what might come. Alcohol was courage distilled. Not too much, never too little, just enough to keep the heart from hesitating. The horses sense it too. They stamp and snort, their muscles trembling under the cold. Riders hum low songs, ancient tunes that sound more like prayers. The rhythm of breath and wind fuses with the pulse of hooves. Every sip, shared under the stars, feels like an oath to something larger than life. When dawn breaks, the camp comes alive with motion. Armor creaks, boughs tighten, hooves drum the earth. The smell of smoke and fermented milk lingers in the air, ghostly and warm. You feel your pulse sync with the horse's stride. Fear dissolves, not gone, just transformed into rhythm. Out on the open field, banners snap in the wind. The world turns to motion and sound, shouts, drums, wind, arrows. It's chaos and ceremony all at once. The Mongols believed courage wasn't about not feeling fear. It was about carrying it quietly, the way you carry the taste of sour milk after swallowing. When the first clash comes, the sound is overwhelming. Steel meeting flesh, cries swallowed by wind. Yet there's a strange calm beneath it, a steadiness born from repetition. You realize the Mongols didn't fight drunk, they fought synchronized, every movement part of a larger, ancient rhythm. Later, when the smoke clears and the silence returns, the first thing anyone reaches for isn't a sword, it's a drink. The same bowl that blessed the battle blesses survival. They pour a few drops into the dirt for the fallen, the rest for the living. The air smells again of milk and earth. One rider sits apart, wiping blood from his blade. He drinks slowly, eyes fixed on nothing. You wonder what he's thinking, if he tastes victory or grief, maybe both. Maybe it's the same flavor. The airag has lost its fizz, its sweetness gone, but no one minds. It's the taste of continuation, and that's all that matters. On the steppe, there's no triumph without fatigue, no celebration without silence. You take one last sip and breathe out. The air feels thin, the light pale. Somewhere, the horses graze again, their tails flicking lazily. You realize the steppe forgets battles quickly, but it remembers the toasts. By the time the sun sinks again, laughter returns. The fire burns, bowls circle, and songs fill the air once more. The war, like the drink, has gone down smooth enough to forget until tomorrow. Morning smells of boiled herbs and regret. The fire crackles weakly in the center of the tent, smoke curling toward the ceiling hole. You sit, hunched, head throbbing, eyes heavy. Across from you, a healer grinds roots in a small stone bowl, humming to himself. The air smells like mint, dirt, and old milk. Hangovers in the Mongol Empire were treated like minor curses, spiritual and physical at once. The cure began with humility. Admit your foolishness, drink more milk, and stay quiet until the world forgave you. You'd think it's silly until you tried to argue with a head full of thunder. The healer pours hot milk mixed with salt and crushed garlic into a bowl. The smell is vivid. You hold your breath and sip. It burns your throat, clears your sinuses, and makes your stomach lurch. But slowly, miraculously, it works. The Mongols never separated medicine from punishment. They also believed hangovers were caused by angry spirits hiding behind the eyes. To chase them out, you had to sweat, pray, or laugh. Some chose to ride until the wind cured them. Others sat in the sun until their shadows felt lighter. Everyone, eventually, recovered through motion. Outside, horses graze quietly. You hear their slow chewing through the tent's felt walls, steady as time. The sound feels medicinal in its own way. Everything on the steppe is cyclical. Drink, burn, regret, heal, repeat. Even guilt here has a rhythm. The healer sprinkles ash into the fire, murmuring something about balance. "Too much cold in the head," he says, handing you another bowl. You obey without protest. In this world, advice comes without debate. You swallow and taste confusion, fermented tea, milk, onion, possibly despair. Despite yourself, you laugh. The healer grins, pleased. "Good," he says. Spirits hate laughter. You realize humor was half the medicine. Life on the steppe left no room for bitterness. Even pain was shared, softened by jokes and the promise of another drink tomorrow. As the day warms, your head clears. The tent smells fresher now, milk, herbs, and faint wood smoke. The healer sits cross-legged, sipping tea, his face unreadable. "Better?" he asks. You nod. "Good. Next time, remember, the bowl is patient, but the stomach isn't." You thank him and step outside. The sky stretches forever, flawless and cruel. The cold air bites your lungs awake. You can taste last night in the back of your throat, like a secret too stubborn to vanish, but it's fading. Slowly, kindly. Across the camp, laughter rises again. Someone's already started singing, badly. Another is brewing more erig, beating the leather bag in steady rhythm. You smile, realizing that recovery, too, is communal. No one suffers alone when everyone's foolish together. By evening, you're drinking again, not out of temptation, but tradition. The healer joins you this time, his laugh deep and tired. Moderation, he says, is for people who can afford boredom. You raise your bowl to him and drink. The cycle begins again, as eternal as the wind. The night settles soft and familiar, the stars pale above. Your head hums gently, your chest warm. For all the world's wisdom, maybe this is enough. To hurt, to heal, to laugh, to repeat. You can smell wealth before you see it. The royal encampment glows like a mirage against the steppe. Silk walls, golden thread, carpets soft enough to forget the dirt beneath. Inside, everything flickers in gold and red. The air smells of meat, perfume, and alcohol. The laughter is slow, confident, practiced. The empire's stomach is full tonight. At the head of the feast, the Khan sits surrounded by bowls, some of ayrag, some of wine imported from faraway Persia. The air hums with contradictions, nomads wrapped in silk, conquerors sipping civilization through unfamiliar grapes. You realize the Mongols didn't conquer to change the world, they conquered to taste it. The servants pour steadily, never stopping, never speaking. The smell of wine mingles with the familiar sourness of milk, creating something new, something decadent and uneasy. Silk rustles, metal clinks, and someone sneezes from too much perfume. The night feels heavy, indulgent, alive. Poets and musicians take turns entertaining the Khan. One sings of the early days, of hunger, wind, and hard bread. The older warriors nod quietly, remembering when victory smelled like smoke instead of roses. The younger ones laugh louder, drunk on comfort they didn't earn. The contrast tastes bitter. The Khan watches without expression. He drinks slowly, not for joy, but control. His face reflects the firelight, half shadow, half flame. You realize his intoxication isn't escape, it's meditation. To rule an empire that stretches from snow to sand, a man needs something stronger than sobriety. A Persian musician plays a soft tune on a stringed instrument, the notes trembling like candlelight. The song tells of love lost to time. The room grows quieter. Even the horses outside seem to listen. For a brief moment, all the gold, all the glory feels distant, small compared to memory. Then laughter breaks the spell. Cups clink again, stories resume, and the moment vanishes like smoke. Someone spills wine on a carpet woven in Damascus. No one cares. Excess, you realize, numbs not just pain but awe. The more they drink, the less the world surprises them. A nobleman tries to recite a poem, but his voice slurs, the words dissolving into nonsense. The others cheer him anyway. Even failure is luxurious when it happens on silk. The Mongols once conquered cities in a day. Now they conquer their own boredom. You sip your bowl quietly. The milk is warm, thick, faintly sweet. The wine beside it gleams like fire. Two worlds in one tent, one born of survival, the other of victory. You wonder which tastes better. As the night stretches on, the air grows sluggish. The fire burns lower. You see servants stepping softly between nobles, clearing bowls, whispering prayers. They know excess always ends the same way, with silence and sleep. The Khan finally rises, his robe trailing gold. Enough, he says softly, the word heavier than thunder. The room freezes. He leaves without looking back. The tent exhales. The laughter returns, gum but quieter now. Outside, the cold slaps your face. You breathe in the steps' clean air and realize comfort dulls the senses, but hardship sharpens them. The stars seem brighter out here, far from silk and gold, where milk still sours honestly. Far from the courts and the chaos, a single shepherd sits beneath a low sky. His fire is small, barely enough to glow. The steppe stretches endlessly around him, silent, pale, familiar. His horse grazes nearby, tail flicking lazily. In his lap rests a leather flask of airag, half full, half forgotten. He drinks slowly, not from celebration, but habit. The taste is sharp tonight, colder than usual. The wind steals half the warmth before it reaches his throat. Still, it burns just enough to remind him he's alive. Sometimes that's all a man needs. The stars above shimmer faintly through clouds, like silver coins scattered by careless gods. The shepherd hums an old song, one his grandfather taught him. The melody wanders like the wind, no chorus, no end, just repetition. It's a lullaby for loneliness. His hands are rough, his face cut by years of cold. Each wrinkle feels earned, carved by seasons of silence. The airag softens their edges, if only for a while. Out here, no one drinks for show. Each sip is both prayer and punctuation. He remembers the time he rode with the army, younger, louder, braver. The feasts, the fires, the songs. Now the only songs are his own, the only witness his horse. Yet the peace is deeper. Solitude is its own intoxication. The fire crackles softly, tiny sparks rising like thoughts that don't quite become words. The air smells faintly of milk and ash. He takes another sip and laughs quietly, remembering a toast from long ago. May your horse never lie, and your drink never run dry. Both wishes have mostly held true. The wind picks up, rolling over the plain in waves. It sounds like voices if you listen long enough. Friends, family, ghosts. Maybe that's why Mongols drank outside. The wind turned silence into company. Every gust was a conversation with memory. He leans back, eyes half closed, the sky swallowing him whole. The warmth in his chest feels small but steady. No empire, no gold, no command, just a man, a horse and a drink, simplicity distilled. A wolf howls somewhere far off. The horse snorts but doesn't move. The shepherd pours a few drops of airag into the dirt. For you, he murmurs. The steppe accepts it silently. Out here, even animals are owed their share. The flask grows lighter, the fire dimmer. He hums again, slower this time. His eyelids droop, his body softens. You can almost feel the rhythm of his breathing matching the wind. Everything blends. Smoke, cold, stars, thought. When the flask is empty, he doesn't rise. He just watches the horizon fade into black. The warmth in his chest turns to calm, the calm to sleep. Somewhere, the horse shifts closer, as if to guard the dream. And when dawn finally comes, pale and thin, it finds them both still there, alive, at peace, and gently hung over beneath a sky that never cared either way. You hear laughter before you see the camp. Not polite laughter, but the kind that shakes the ribs and confuses the horses. The night smells of sweat, milk, and regret. Someone is singing off-key. Someone else is trying to mount a horse, backward. You found the Mongols' most dangerous invention, drinking while standing, riding, or both. The steppe was too vast for taverns, so they made the saddle their bar stool. Riders carried small flasks of airag, sipping between miles, letting the wind sober what the alcohol confused. It wasn't reckless, it was rhythm. A moving feast across continents. You watch a young rider raise his bowl mid-gallop, shouting a toast to the moon. His horse snorts, unimpressed, but keeps pace. The drink splashes across the air like pale fire. When he finally lowers it, half the liquid is gone, half his dignity too. He laughs anyway. The steppe forgives fools who ride well. Drunken riding was part comedy, part competition. They called it testing courage or testing stupidity, depending on who fell first. A warrior's reputation wasn't ruined by falling, it was ruined by staying down. You can almost hear the laughter echoing for miles when someone face-planted into snow. Even the horses seemed to adapt. After centuries of practice, they knew how to ignore their rider's nonsense. A good horse could guide its owner home by instinct alone. Some riders claimed they woke up in new towns, their mounts grazing calmly beside them, as if embarrassed but loyal. The line between bravery and intoxication blurred often. Drunkenness turned fear into freedom, mistakes into memories. You imagine them racing under starlight, voices hoarse, eyes watering from wind and laughter. There's a strange poetry in chaos when it happens under the open sky. Sometimes, accidents became legends. One rider, too drunk to aim, fired an arrow that struck a tree miles away, completely by luck. The story spread faster than any army. By the next year, people swore he'd shot a star. You realize myths are born exactly this way, half truth, half fermentation. Not everyone approved, of course. Elders grumbled about wasted milk and wasted pride, but even they smiled, watching the youth tumble like sacks of wool. Let them fall, one said. Better the ground than the sword. Humor was their version of mercy. The hangovers were legendary. The next morning, the camp moved slower than usual. Horses yawned, Warriors cursed softly. Someone always swore off drinking forever, until dusk. You hear the same promises broken with laughter. In the Mongol Empire, self-control was seasonal. Even Genghis Khan, they said, once drank too much and tried to command the moon to kneel. It didn't, of course, but he forgave it. The moon, he allegedly said, knows when to ignore orders. You can't help but smile. Power is nothing without a sense of humor. When the night finally quiets, the steppe feels enormous again. The fires shrink, the laughter fades, the horses sigh. You sit there, sipping what's left of your airag, feeling the cold return. The stars seem closer after the noise dies down. By dawn, the drunks are sleeping soundly and the wind has erased the tracks. Only the faint smell of milk and burnt wood remains, a reminder that even empires need foolish nights to remember they're human. Morning begins soft and strange. Mist rolls across the grass, carrying whispers from last night's laughter. In the quiet, you hear someone reciting a story near the fire. His voice is low, slow, deliberate, the tone of a storyteller who's seen the world blur from both distance and drink. The Mongols loved tales about their beverages. Every drink had a story, every drunken act a myth. They said the first airag was blessed by a spirit disguised as a mare. The goddess gave milk to a lonely shepherd who forgot to thank her, so she cursed him to crave her gift forever. You can taste that curse in every sip. Other legends told of a warrior who found enlightenment after falling off his horse into a barrel of airag. He emerged claiming to have met the sky gods underwater. They told him 3 secrets, which he promptly forgot. The Mongols loved that story. It made wisdom feel attainable and hilarious. In another tale, milk turned to wine during a thunderstorm. Lightning struck a saddlebag, and when the rider opened it, the milk fizzed, alive and warm. He drank it, saw spirits dancing in the clouds, and called it Tengri's breath. That's how they explained fermentation. Divine accidents. Even the shamans had rituals that blurred the line between science and superstition. They drank until visions came, colors, animals, ancestors. Some called it communion. Others called it indigestion. But for them, drunkenness wasn't escape, it was translation. Alcohol turned silence into revelation. The people believed that to drink milk was to honor the horse. To waste it was to insult the sky. Every spill had to be justified. The wind wanted some, they'd say, wiping their chins. Humor softened devotion, keeping faith from turning rigid. Sometimes myths turned into rules. No one drank during storms, for fear the gods were listening. No one drank the first milk of spring without offering a drop to the ground. Each tradition kept the invisible world balanced, one gulp at a time. You listen as the storyteller's voice rises and falls with the smoke. His words sound half remembered, half invented, but the rhythm is what matters. The story isn't about truth, it's about the comfort of hearing it again. He drinks between sentences, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. The milk gleams white against the black of his beard. Around him, faces glow in the firelight, eyes soft, breaths slow. The crowd isn't laughing anymore, they're listening with that quiet stillness that follows contentment. The story ends without warning. He just nods once, sets down his bowl, and leans back. No one claps. No one needs to. The tale will return tomorrow. Slightly different, slightly truer. Like fermentation, Stories only improve with time. You lie down near the fire, the warmth licking your skin. The air smells of smoke and sourness, alive and familiar. Somewhere, a horse snorts. The world feels vast but kind. You close your eyes and realize that maybe the real myth isn't in the milk, it's in the memory. The storyteller begins humming softly, the tune older than the empire itself. You drift between waking and dreaming, the song following you like smoke curling into the stars. The bowl is empty again. You tilt it toward the firelight, watching the last drops cling stubbornly to the wood. They reflect orange, gold, and ghostly white. It's strange how something so simple, milk, time, and patience, can make the world feel different. For the Mongols, the end of a drink was rarely an ending, it was a mirror. Old warriors often said you could see your past in the bottom of a bowl if you stared long enough. Not magic, just memory. Maybe that's why they drank slowly, swirling the liquid like thoughts. The reflection trembled, faces bending and breaking with each movement. Some smiled, others didn't. A man near the fire hums a soft tune. He's missing an eye, but his voice is whole. He sings of battles long past, of brothers who rode too far into the wind. Each verse ends with a sip. Each sip tastes like someone who never came home. You realize alcohol here wasn't just for joy, it was for remembrance. Drunkenness softened grief in ways silence never could. When the bowl passed through camp, stories returned from the dead. Each sip unearthed laughter that had been buried beneath duty. You watched the faces around you, young and old, drunk and quiet, blurring together in a circle of warmth. In the flickering firelight, every scar looks softer. The Mongols didn't mourn loudly, they mourned together. The bowl kept moving, as if the motion itself warded off despair. Drink enough, and sadness becomes song. Too much, and song becomes slumber. It's a balance they understood better than most. Someone mentions an old comrade who once rode for 7 days after being fatally wounded. He didn't want to die sober, another replies. They laugh, not cruelly, but affectionately. You can feel the warmth ripple outward, laughter chasing pain like sunlight chasing frost. When the wind picks up, the tent shivers. Ash swirls from the fire and lands in your bowl. No one bothers to brush it away. On the step, everything, grit, smoke, memory, belongs in the mix. Perfection doesn't survive here. Only rhythm does. The elder raises his bowl, voice hoarse. To the ones who can't drink with us. The others echo softly. The bowls clink. The sound is small, but it fills the room more deeply than song. You feel the warmth move through the tent like an invisible tide. Outside, the night is black velvet scattered with stars. The air smells of cold metal and faint milk. The wind hums across the plains, carrying voices that might be real or might just be echoes. Out here, it's hard to tell the difference. You take another sip. Slower this time. The taste is nearly gone, watery, thin, but the warmth remains. You realize the drink's purpose isn't to intoxicate, it's to remind. The Mongols never built monuments, only memories that lived inside people, passed like bowls. The man with one eye finishes his song. No applause, no cheers, just a deep sigh from everyone, like a shared exhale. The fire crackles softly, shrinking into itself. The air feels lighter, but your chest heavier. As you lie back, you realize the night has stopped moving. The world is still. The bowl rests beside you, empty but alive with light. Sometimes, The most powerful memories are the ones that taste sour but warm. Morning arrives slowly, like an apology. The camp smells of smoke, wet leather, and stale milk. Everywhere, people groan softly. Warriors, cooks, even the horses seem quieter. The great Mongol machine has paused, briefly human again. You sit by the dying fire, holding a cup of weak tea, waiting for the sun to make forgiveness official. Hangovers in the empire weren't personal, they were collective. Everyone suffered together. The laughter from the night before lingered in the air, embarrassed but not sorry. Someone coughs, someone sings half a verse before quitting. The camp feels like a cathedral built for regret. The healer walks through the tents, carrying herbs and judgment. He hands you a root that tastes like boiled despair. "Chew," he says. You do, it doesn't help. But then again, maybe it does. The Mongols treated discomfort like weather, something to endure, not fix. The sun climbs, turning the frost into steam. The air grows warmer, forgiving. You hear laughter again, cautious at first, then bolder. By noon, the misery fades into conversation. Someone recounts what happened last night. Someone else denies everything. Memory here is optional. A few still lie in their furs, unmoving. Others clean their saddles, humming softly. The rhythm of life resumes, slow but steady. The steppe has no patience for weakness. You ride, or you freeze. You drink, or you dry out. You endure, or you vanish. In a corner of the camp, an old man begins boiling milk for the next batch of airag. The smell fills the air, familiar, forgiving. You can't help but laugh. Humanity's cycle of foolishness starts again before the last mistake finishes, leaving the bloodstream. It's strange when you think how an empire that ruled continents still relied on bacteria and patience to stay alive. The Mongols conquered through control, but they lived through fermentation. Every revolution begins in something left to rot just long enough. As the day stretches, the camp starts packing. Horses are saddled, fires doused, tents rolled up tight. The land looks untouched again, as if nothing ever happened. Only the faint smell of milk and smoke remains, blending with the wind. Someone rides past you, raising a bowl toward the sky. "To hangovers!" he shouts. Everyone laughs. Humor here is survival, not choice. If the world insists on punishing joy, the least you can do is toast it back. By evening, the steppe is quiet again. The wind whistles through the grass, unbothered. You feel a calm weight in your chest, the kind that follows exhaustion, not peace. The empire breathes, stretches, and keeps riding forward. Hangovers fade, empires don't. Yet both feel the same in the morning, tired, hopeful, slightly ashamed, and somehow ready to begin again. You look toward the horizon, where the last fires burn low, and think, maybe that's what greatness really is, the ability to wake up after everything and still keep going. Torchlight ripples along a street of packed earth, turning dust into gold and shadows into velvet. You smell lamb fat, cumin, wet leather, and wood smoke, then, unexpected, citrus peels drying on a string. Karakoram hums like a hive. At a single doorway you hear Persian lutes, Chinese flutes, and a Turkic drum arguing politely. This is the empire's throat, swallowing roads and exhaling caravans. You step closer to the door, and the night leans in, curious to see what you'll drink first. Inside, heat folds around you, stove breath, bodies, and steam lifting from bowls. A server with a plaited beard carries mare's milk, foaming like a small storm. while another sets down grape wine that glows like a wound. Karakoram didn't choose between farm and vineyard. It said yes to both. For Mongols, that mattered. Conquest wasn't just land, it was flavor. You lift a bowl and understand how geography fits inside a sip. At the back table, a Yuga scribe laughs with a Rus trader, arguing over how drunk a man can be while still counting taxes. Their coins clink like weak bells. A Chinese metallurgist toasts a Tibetan monk with tea laced in something suspicious. Here, language breaks down into toasts, shrugs, and refills. That bridging mattered more than grammar. Alliances made in cups last longer than treaties on paper. Your smile tastes slightly of cinnamon. A storyteller begins, voice low as a drum buried under blankets. He tells of a courier who drank 3 bowls, rode 3 days, and delivered 3 empires bad news before lunch. Exaggeration is the steppe's national sport. Yet his point lands softly. Speed and stamina built the system. Alcohol greased it, hospitality at relay stations, courage on frozen passes, forgetfulness when memories burned. You catch yourself swaying to his rhythm. Near the hearth, a woman stirs a pot where milk, tea, and toasted millet mingle into comfort. The smell climbs your throat like gentleness. These simple blends mattered in a city of extremes, softening the edges of iron, silk, and ambition. Empires overstimulate, kitchens regulate. You sip and feel your pulse step down a stair. Market noise seeps through the shutters. Camel snorts, wheel groans, bargaining that sounds like poetry with deadlines. A Georgian brings dark wine, a Sogdian sells dried apricots like edible suns. Mongol guards taste everything first, smiling without surrendering posture, security as sampling, very on brand. You think of modern tastings and laugh. This version involves archers. A tax official enters, shaking snow from his shoulders like a dog with paperwork. He orders airag for fairness, then tallies numbers that wobble pleasantly. In Karakoram, fairness means everyone is equally lubricated. The policy works better than lectures. When the bowl returns, accounts balance and tempers cool. You realize governance sometimes prefers bubbles over bayonets. Outside, prayer wheels spin in a side alley, metal whispering like patient rain. A Nestorian cross shares a courtyard with a Buddhist banner and a shaman's drum. All of them blessed the same drink earlier. That pluralism mattered. When gods drink together, people stop throwing tables. You inhale incense mixed with mutton and decide pluralism smells like smoky honey. At the far wall, a mapmaker traces a route with a charcoal finger, smudging Persia into China as if distance were a rumor. He sips, squints, and corrects a river with the decisiveness only alcohol grants. Drunk cartography is a risk. Still, trade finds a way. Tomorrow a caravan will follow his blurred certainty and somehow arrive. The steppe forgives confidence. A musician plucks a 2-string horsehead fiddle. The note opens the room like a door in winter, clean and aching. Drunken talk shrinks to respectful murmur. Music in Karakoram matters precisely because everything else is noise. You feel your shoulders drop, as if unsaddled. The bow's hair glints. You think of manes moving across morning. Later, a patrol bell trembles outside, reminding the district to sleep. The innkeeper dims lamps until the walls hold only ember-colored breath. You drain your bowl and set it down, wood kissing wood. Karakoram exhales, a city that eats roads and burps stories. Your eyelids agree with municipal policy. When you step into the night, the stars feel domesticated, still infinite, but politely fenced by rooftops. Snow sifts down, sugar on a dark cake. Your mouth remembers cumin, copper, and milk. The empire returns to hoofbeats and hush. You tuck the taste away like a coin for the next border. Dawn is slate blue, the cold so clean it squeaks. You follow smoke to a tent where curiosity smells like apples and rope. Inside, a copper still squats over coals, sweating gently. Coils snake like tame lightning toward a clay jar that drips in patient syllables. The air tastes metallic, sweet, and slightly criminal. Welcome to Arki, milk turned into a whisper that shouts. A woman with weathered hands checks the seal with a wetted thumb, nodding at the hiss. Distillation reached the steppe by many roads. Islamic alchemists, Chinese tinkerers, traveling geniuses, pick one. The Mongols adopted it the way they adopted everything useful, fast, practical, unceremonious. Irag carried courage, Arki carried consequence. You swallow and feel responsible already. She ladles fermented milk into the pot. It moves like a lazy animal. Heat climbs, patience holds the reins. The first drops arrive, sharp with volatile mischief, discarded for the spirits and for safety. Respect and chemistry share a cup here. That mattered. Good Arki begins with humility. You remember every time impatience burned a pot, a plan, a friendship. Heat is honest. A young man warms cups with steam, arranging them in a circle like small moons. With a hooked stick, he lifts a rag of ice from the coil. Winter helping the process. The still purrs, the tent smells of sweet bread, damp felt, and possibilities you shouldn't text. This part always feels like theft from the gods, he says, grinning. You nod, accomplice by proximity. She hands you a thimble of the clear stuff. It smells like grass dreaming of thunder. The first sip is clean blade, then meadow, then a slow mercy that spreads to the fingertips. Milk remembered its childhood and learned fire. Why it mattered? Arki travels better than foam, warms faster than stories, bargains harder than wine. You place the cup down with respect. Outside, hooves clatter. A courier drops in for medicine, leaving lighter, louder, and perhaps wiser. Distilled hospitality accelerates errands. In a land of distances, acceleration is an ethic. The still continues its steady grammar. Drop, pause, drop. Punctuation for a day that hasn't decided its genre. You breathe in and classify yours as possible. Someone mentions do's and don'ts. Never drink the first run, never toast a journey without pouring a drop to the road, never promise policy decisions after the second cup. The rules grew like frost flowers, practical, pretty, easily broken. Humor patrols the border. You promise nothing and accept everything poured. Midday, a shaman arrives with herbs tied like tiny brooms. He smokes the coil briefly, muttering to keep mischief out of the vapor. Science tolerates ceremony here. Ceremony tolerates science back. The result is safer throats and happier ancestors. You sip again and taste cooperation, rare, potent, under-celebrated. The woman adjusts the fire with a flat-faced stick, eyes on the drip rate like a general watching supply lines. Too fast, it bites. Too slow, it sulks. Distillation is leadership in miniature. Control heat, honor timing, share result. The tent glows with competence. You feel oddly inspired, which is dangerous around glass. By late afternoon, the Arki turns softer, like metal remembering it was ore. They label jars by smell and mood rather than numbers. Brave, talkative, marry late. crude taxonomy, perfect guidance. You help stack them near the cool wall, the clay sweating like small camels. Logistics, but cozy. Evening folds the step into violet cloth. A test toast circles, one sip to engines, one sip to animals, one sip to journeys. Your cheeks bloom, your thoughts arrange themselves politely, then wander off holding hands. The still ticks as it cools. The tent breathes like a living chest. Outside, the wind sniffs and moves on. Before sleep, she tips a spoon of ackee onto the earth. "For the road that brought it," she says. The drop steams and vanishes. You understand the elegance. Milk from moving herds, heat from gathered dung, cold from the sky, patience from hands, world distilled into courage. You lie down, smiling, as if the stars have been clarified too. You follow a trail of laughter through the cold. The wind carries the smell of fried dough, camel sweat, and fermented milk. Ahead, torches mark a trading post, half inn, half rumour. This is where caravans pause, where languages ferment faster than milk, and where a bowl of something strong might cost less than the truth. The ground is frozen, but the air feels warm with stories waiting to stumble out. Inside, the tavern hums like a hive. Traders from Persia, China, and Rus crowd long benches, their fur coats dripping with melted frost. The walls are woven felt painted with red swirls, protection symbols and maybe advertisements. Smoke curls lazily from a central hearth, turning faces golden and forgetful. The room smells of onions, leather, and possibility. You realize this isn't a bar. It's the Empire's living news feed. At one table, a man from Samarkand bargains loudly, his hands dancing like birds. At another, a Mongol archer sits silent, sipping airag with the patience of granite. A poet from Bukhara strums a broken lute, singing a song about home that no one here has seen. Everyone nods anyway. On the Silk Road, nostalgia is the only universal currency. The host, a tall woman with frost-white braids, moves between tables refilling bowls with frightening speed. Her apron smells of milk, smoke, and judgment. She calls everyone child, regardless of age or rank. When a brawl starts over a spilled drink, she ends it with a ladle to the head, efficient, democratic, deeply respected. You admire her kingdom. In the corner, someone pours clear ackee into small clay cups, whispering about the strong one. It burns like desert sun. You sip and feel the steps' logic. Pain first, warmth later. Across the room, a Chinese merchant replaces his wine flask with milk and sighs in surrender. Integration through humiliation. It works faster than politics. The hearth crackles, glowing brighter as the wind moans outside. A caravan leader tells of frozen mountains and ghost traders who wander forever between dunes. Another insists he saw a city made entirely of mirrors. No one believes him, but everyone listens. Imagination sells faster than silk. You notice how laughter travels. It starts in one corner, slides across accents, changes shape, and returns unrecognizable but still warm. The Silk Road didn't just move goods, it moved emotion. Every toast is translation. Every hangover, cultural exchange. A Persian scholar sketches something in the soot near the fire, a new kind of distilling coil, he says, learned from an alchemist in Bukhara. The Mongol beside him nods politely, understanding none of it but appreciating the ambition. Empires grow through good listeners. The night grows heavy with voices and steam. Outside, the snow begins again, muting the world. Inside, the room feels timeless, a pulse under frost. You sip slower now, each swallow grounding you in this chorus of strangers who somehow share the same rhythm. At midnight, the woman host closes the door, mutters a small prayer to the wind, and lowers the flame. She leaves one bowl full for the spirits, house policy. The laughter dims to murmurs, then sighs. Everyone stares at the fire, each seeing their own home in it. When you finally step out, the cold hits like truth. The stars flicker sharp as nails. Behind you, the tavern fades into quiet light, its warmth traveling with you. You realize the Silk Road's greatest export was never silk, it was company. You breathe out, and your breath disappears like a secret traded for warmth. Somewhere behind you, someone laughs again. You smile. Trade continues. The morning smells of milk and smoke, the kind that clings to hair and stories. You hear soft voices before seeing anyone, women laughing quietly, hands busy with work older than conquest. Inside a half-lit tent, mares are being milked and barrels stirred. The air hums with rhythm. This isn't just domestic labor, it's empire maintenance. Without these hands, no man would ride far, and no Khan would toast victory. A woman kneels beside a leather bag, beating it gently with a wooden paddle. Each strike makes the liquid inside shiver. She hums an old tune, the melody as steady as breath. Fermentation requires movement, and patience requires song. She provides both. Her arms are strong, her eyes unhurried. You realize the empire's pulse beats here in repetition, not conquest. Children help, giggling as foam spills onto the ground. Don't waste it, the mother scolds softly, wiping it with a rag and sprinkling it into the fire. Smoke curls up, carrying scent to the gods, respect disguised as cleanup. These small gestures, half faith, half habit, kept their world stitched together more tightly than silk. Men boast about battles, women perfect consistency. The ratio of milk to air determines destiny more than cavalry formations. Each batch has personality, sour if rushed, flat if overworked, brave if made with good laughter. You can almost imagine generals arguing over strategies while their wives argue over foam. History favors the louder voices, but the milk remembers. One woman pours airag into a bowl, eyes closed, judging its readiness by sound alone. The bubbles tell her everything, weather, mood, even gossip. She tastes, nods once, and smiles. It's good, she says simply, though that word carries generations. You sip and taste patience, smoke, and faint grass. It's alive in the mouth. Nearby, an older woman sharpens wooden ladles with a knife so dull it's more memory than blade. She talks about her youth, how she once followed the army west, how the women sang louder than the drums to drown the fear. You realize resilience here isn't quiet, it just doesn't need witnesses. At noon, the campmen return, loud and proud. They drink what the women made, never asking how it happens. Yet they always bow before the first sip, not to gods, but to whoever made the drink. Even in an empire built on command, gratitude flowed downward like milk, finding gravity. Later, when the noise fades, the women gather again, comparing tastes from different batches. One laughs, "Yours smells like tired husband." Another replies, "Yours tastes like old gossip." They giggle until their shoulders shake. Humor softens work, like warmth softens wax. You smile too. Laughter is fermentation for the soul. A young girl practices her stirring technique. Serious as a general, her mother corrects her grip, explaining that too much force scares the milk. "It's alive," she says. The girl nods solemnly. "You understand then, this isn't superstition, it's respect. To treat milk as dead is to forget life's fragility." The day cools, and the smell of boiling tea fills the camp. The women sit in a circle, passing bowls between them, sipping what they made. No ceremony, no hierarchy, just warmth passing hand to hand. It's the calm after every storm the men will never understand. As twilight sinks, they pour the last bowl into the dirt, murmuring thanks. The fire pops in agreement. Smoke drifts upward, curling like laughter that never leaves. The tent glows dimly from inside, its walls breathing in rhythm with the women's quiet talk. You realize these were the true architects of endurance, the ones who brewed courage, one bowl at a time. When the stars finally appear, the camp grows silent. The women rest, the milk sleeps, and the wind carries their laughter across the steppe like perfume. Tomorrow, it will start again, measured, patient, eternal. The fire burns low, painting the tent in lazy gold. Someone plucks a morang cure, its horsehead carving glinting like bone. The strings hum softly, and a melody rises that you've never heard but somehow know. It drifts slow, circular, like the wind tracing a hill. It's not a song you learn, it's a song you remember. And tonight, it belongs to the drunk. The Mongols said music was what held the sky together. Every note vibrated through the steppe like breath through a drum. A song without listeners was only half alive. That's why they sang late, when the alcohol had erased self-consciousness and truth felt safe. Each melody carried the honesty that sobriety edits out. You watch as voices join, uneven but sincere, some deep, some cracked, all human. They don't harmonize. They orbit each other like stars in disagreement. Yet it's beautiful. The imperfection makes it whole. In the pauses, you hear bowls clink softly, a reminder that rhythm survives even between sips. A woman begins a verse about her husband lost at war. She doesn't cry. She doesn't need to. The melody does it for her. Others hum along quietly, heads bowed. Alcohol doesn't erase grief. It translates it into a language that doesn't break the throat. You feel the ache settle in your chest, gentle as fog. Another man, older, half asleep, half holy, sings about a horse that carried him home after every mistake. The room chuckles softly, but it's the kind of laughter that loves. In the Mongol tongue, the word for forgive also means untie. You can see forgiveness happening in real time, bonds loosening, not breaking. Between songs, silence expands, deep and kind. No one rushes to fill it. The wind outside whispers in the seams of the tent like another instrument. You realize silence here isn't absence, it's chorus. Even the pauses feel alive, humming with shared exhaustion and peace. The morning kur changes rhythm, now slower, deeper. The notes vibrate in your bones. Each sound feels like walking farther into memory. Maybe that's the point. The drunk rememberers aren't performing. They're mapping their lives in sound. History written not on paper, but in vibration. When the melody ends, no one claps. The silence after feels like breath after prayer. You sip Arag quietly, tasting sourness that somehow feels right. This is the step's wisdom. Nothing sweet stays true for long. Someone begins another tune, softer still. The words drift about love or loss, or maybe milk, it's hard to tell. The meanings overlap like shadows. You realize meaning doesn't matter when emotion is fluent. The fire sighs, collapsing inward. The room dims, and faces blur into silhouettes. One by one, voices fade, replaced by the steady breathing of the half-sleeping. The last note lingers in the smoke like an ember refusing to die. You close your eyes, the warmth heavy in your chest. Even now, the melody plays somewhere inside you, faint and endless. Maybe that's what these songs were for, to leave something living behind after the fire went out. Outside, the stars blink patiently. You realize that for every empire that vanished, some song still hums beneath the soil, stubbornly in tune. Morning hasn't yet decided to begin. The air in the tent is heavy, still carrying the ghost of last night's laughter. Someone stirs the ashes, coaxing faint sparks into life. You sit cross-legged, eyes half open, holding a half-empty bowl. The taste is warm, sour, forgiving, the kind that makes you think you're wiser than you are, and maybe, briefly, you are. Drunken Mongols loved philosophy almost as much as horses. They debated everything: loyalty, luck, whether clouds were slow rivers or lazy smoke. No subject was off limits when the fire was low and the bowls endless. Wisdom here didn't come from books. It fermented like milk, quietly, unpredictably, and always with an aftertaste. An old warrior scratches his beard and says, "A man who rides too far for revenge will forget where his home is." The others nod solemnly, though one laughs and mutters, "Then I'll just make revenge my home." The tent bursts into laughter. That's how philosophy worked here, half joke, half truth, fully shared. A shaman adds his thoughts, tracing circles in the dirt. "Everything spins," he says. "Wind, milk, stories, time. Even death is a kind of spinning." No one argues. Circles make sense when your world has no walls. You realize that drunkenness doesn't cloud reason, it relaxes it, lets it breathe in bigger shapes. Someone offers you more airag, and you accept automatically. The bowl feels heavier than it should. The man pouring it smiles knowingly. "Wisdom," he says, "is just confusion with good manners." You nearly choke laughing. The phrase feels truer than it should. You repeat it quietly, trying not to forget. A younger man brags about his drinking skill, claiming he can outlast the sun. The elder beside him shakes his head. "Then you'll just be drunk in the dark," he says. Everyone chuckles again. The rhythm of joke and silence feels sacred. Each laugh smooths another edge off reality. The shaman tosses herbs into the fire, and green smoke curls upward, smelling of mint and strange calm. "Even the gods get drunk," he murmurs. "That's why stars wander." You picture divine hangovers glittering across the night sky and nearly spill your drink laughing. Still, part of you believes him. Soon the laughter softens. The conversation slows into the rhythm of shared fatigue. Someone mumbles that milk is memory and that's why it spoils when forgotten. No one quite knows what it means, but everyone agrees anyway. Agreement is easier after enough warmth. The wind pushes at the tent wall. The world outside rustles like parchment. Inside, the air is golden with smoke and morning light. You realize wisdom here isn't about answers, it's about peace. Every insight fades as soon as it's spoken, leaving only quiet satisfaction. The fire snaps suddenly, sending a shower of sparks upward. Everyone watches in silence. The old warrior says softly, "That's what a thought looks like, bright, brief, and gone before you name it." You nod, holding the image like a small truth in your palm. The bowls empty one by one. The shaman stretches, yawns, and says, "Enough enlightenment for one night." Everyone laughs, gathering cloaks and courage to face the cold. Outside, dawn finally commits to happening. You step into the pale light, the snow crunching underfoot. The wind smells of smoke and milk. Behind you, the tent glows faintly, still breathing wisdom that no one will write down. You take a deep breath and smile. Sometimes the best thoughts are the ones that vanish before pride ruins them. The wind tonight sounds different, softer, almost kind. You walk toward a fire on the far edge of camp, following laughter that rises and falls like waves. There, beside a half-empty jar of ackee, an old man sits cross-legged, face red from the cold and the drink. He's the kind of drunk who doesn't slur, he philosophizes. And the world, out of politeness, listens. He greets you with a grin. "You want to hear how I found the sky?" he asks, holding up his cup like an artifact. You nod, because that's what you do when legends begin with confidence. He points upward, finger wobbling. It's not up there. That's the trick. You wait, unsure if he's mad or magnificent. Maybe both. He tells you he once drank enough to forget his horse, his name, and the meaning of north. He wandered for 3 days, guided by dizziness and starlight, until he tripped into a frozen river. The shock sobered him just enough to notice how beautiful everything looked underwater, light, bending, slow, and quiet. That's where the sky hides, he says. Under us. You watch the flames dance in his eyes as he speaks. The crackle of fire becomes punctuation, the pauses more important than the words. People always look up, he says, but the gods, they like mirrors. The bowl trembles in his hand as he laughs. When you fall, you see the truth. Falling's the only honest prayer. Others gather around now, drawn by his voice. The old man sips again, wipes his mouth with a grin. They say the drunk see double. Good. Maybe that's what wisdom is, seeing twice and forgiving both versions. Laughter rolls through the circle, low and genuine. The wind outside hums in approval. He continues, explaining how he returned to camp still half frozen, claiming enlightenment. The others believed him because belief requires a good story, and he told it better than most. They gave him a new horse, a new name, and, wisely, no more responsibility. You realize every empire needs its prophets, and most come with hangovers. The fire grows brighter as the night deepens. The man's voice softens, turning from mischief to memory. The truth, he says, the world's too wide to stay sober in. Sometimes you need to blur the edges just to see what's hiding between them. The words hang there, heavy and simple. You sip, agreeing without knowing why. He leans back, gazing at the stars as if negotiating terms. People drink to forget, he murmurs. I drink to remember that forgetting is allowed. The crowd hums in quiet approval. You sense that no priest, no scholar, no Khan ever spoke truer than this man with milk on his breath and frost in his beard. The laughter fades into hums. The fire sinks lower, coals glowing like patient eyes. The old man's head droops, his bowl still in hand. Someone gently takes it away, setting it beside him. Even prophets need sleep. You realize wisdom often ends mid-sentence. Outside, snow begins to fall, soft as ash. The world hushes itself, wrapping the camp in stillness. You lie back, staring at the same stars, wondering if they look different now that you've met a man who found the sky underwater. The air tastes cold, the earth feels close, and the warmth in your chest lingers like memory. Maybe the step was right all along, The ground and the sky are the same when you're drunk enough to stop pretending otherwise. Sleep slides in gently, carrying his laughter with it. The stories say the great Khan grew quieter in his final years. Less thunder, more sighs. The empire stretched farther than the horizon could imagine. Yet he often sat alone at night, a single bowl before him. You can picture it now, the felt walls glowing orange, the fire whispering, the sound of horses breathing outside. Power feels colder when there's no one left to toast. He lifts the bowl slowly, studying the ripples. Mare's milk again, nothing fancy. He could have demanded Persian wine or Chinese tea, but simplicity ages better than taste. The smell is sharp, sour, honest. He drinks and lets the warmth settle. For a man who once moved continents, stillness feels like a rebellion. In the flickering light, you notice the lines on his face, the map of his empire redrawn in wrinkles, each crease a campaign, each scar a story. He chuckles softly, remembering how many treaties began over bowls just like this. Strange, he mutters, how peace always tastes like milk. A servant enters quietly, refilling the bowl, but the Khan waves him away. Enough, he says, voice calm. If I drink more, I'll start forgiving people. The servant smiles nervously, unsure if it's a joke. It is, and it isn't. Humor, for men like him, is armor that only fits when no one's watching. He sits back, staring at the fire. Outside, the wind picks up, shaking the tent. Somewhere far off, a wolf howls. He listens, lips curling. Even they have kingdoms, he whispers. You realize in that moment he's not drunk, he's free. Alcohol was never his escape, it was his equalizer. He thinks about the feasts, the endless cups, the roaring laughter, the songs that blurred into dawn. He misses them, but not the noise. What he remembers most isn't conquest, it's company. Faces around the fire, eyes soft in the dark. The empire wasn't built on battles. It was built on bowls shared without suspicion. A memory surfaces, his first airag, clumsy and sour. His mother's laugh, his father's pride, the warmth that filled him even before the drink. That was before the armies, before the banners, just a boy, and his world, small but full. He smiles at the thought. The first sip is always the truest. The fire snaps, startling him slightly. He chuckles again. You win, he murmurs to no one in particular. Maybe the milk, maybe time itself. The tent smells of smoke, earth, and faint leather. Outside, snow begins to whisper. The empire sleeps, and so does its storm. He raises the bowl one last time. To the wind, he says softly, and to the fools who thought they could ride it. He drinks slowly, eyes half closed. When he sets it down, his hand lingers on the wood, as if saying goodbye to an old friend. The servant re-enters, but stops when he sees the stillness. The fire flickers once, then sighs. The Khan's head rests gently against his cloak, his face calm. No grandeur, no thunder, just peace, warm and absolute. The greatest empire ever built ends not with war, but with a drink cooling beside the fire. Outside, dawn breaks pale over the steppe. The horses stand silent. The bowl remains on the table, a ring of milk circling its bottom like the moon caught in water. You realize some legacies don't shout, they exhale, and the world, still drunk on history, keeps turning. The fire has shrunk to a single, glowing core, pulsing like a heartbeat under ash. Around it, the camp sleeps. You can hear horses breathing, leather shifting, and the long exhale of wind over grass. The smell of smoke, milk, and sweat lingers, heavy but kind. You sit still, feeling the warmth fade from your palms. This is the hour when even the ghosts forget to whisper. The stars look closer now, hanging low and full of quiet authority. Each one feels like a thought you meant to finish but didn't. You follow their pattern, tracing constellations that never existed, inventing names for them as if memory were geography. Above you, the sky hums softly, almost like it's alive. Maybe it is. The Mongols always believed the heavens watched gently, without judgment, like old friends waiting for you to fall asleep. You lift a half-empty bowl of ayrag, its surface trembling in the starlight. The smell is faintly sour, comforting, familiar. You sip slowly, feeling the coolness spread down your throat and the warmth return. The drink no longer bites, it soothes. The same liquid that began wars now just quiets your breathing. Balance, at last. Across the field, a dog barks once, then stops. The silence returns, deeper now, layered like fabric. You notice your own heartbeat, steady but soft, sinking with the wind. Out here, there's no clock, but firelight and fatigue. Time stretches and folds until the difference between now and forever disappears. Someone snores nearby, a rhythmic sound like gentle thunder. You find it comforting, proof that life continues even in stillness. The Mongols said sleep was a small journey on the inside. You smile at that. Tonight, everyone here is traveling without moving. The bowl in your hands feels lighter now. You trace its rim with your thumb, noticing tiny scratches that catch the firelight. Maybe each mark is a night like this. Laughter, arguments, peace. Objects remember what people forget. You wonder what your own voice sounded like earlier, how your laughter fit into the rhythm of the fire. A faint breeze moves through the camp, carrying the smell of frozen grass and faint dung smoke. Not unpleasant, just real. Everything here smells alive. You think about how the Mongols lived between extremes, ice and fire, silence and noise, hunger and feast. Balance was never about stillness. It was about movement that circled back home. The fire sighs, collapsing inward. You stir it gently, watching sparks lift like gold dust. They rise, shimmer, vanish. Little stars rehearsing their part in eternity. You exhale and feel something loosen inside, something you didn't know was clenched. The night absorbs it quietly, like the steppe forgives everything. You lie back, the ground cold against your shoulders, the sky infinite above. The stars tilt slightly, or maybe it's you drifting. It doesn't matter. The horizon softens. The world becomes round again, like a bowl. Everything you've seen tonight fits inside it. Milk, fire, laughter, silence. Your breath slows. The wind folds around you like a blanket. You think about how the steppe has no walls, no end, and yet somehow feels like home. Maybe home isn't where you stay, it's where the night lets you rest. The last sound before sleep is a horse stamping softly, shaking its mane. Even that feels rhythmic, part of a larger song. You close your eyes. The air tastes faintly of milk and memory. And then, nothing but warmth and stars. Sleep pulls you under gently, not like drowning, but like sinking into warm fur. The air grows thick with color. The camp dissolves and suddenly you're riding. The steppe stretches endless and bright, grass moving in ripples like a green sea. There's no sound except the wind and the steady drumming of hooves. You don't know whose hands hold the reins. It doesn't matter. The horse knows where to go. The sky above glows blue-grey, low enough to touch. The sun hangs like an ember through haze. You smell rain even though the ground stays dry. The wind tastes like salt and iron, like tears from somewhere ancient. The rhythm of the ride is hypnotic, forward, always forward. You realize you've been here before. Every time you closed your eyes near a fire, a herd of wild horses runs beside you, manes streaming like banners. Their eyes reflect the horizon, wild, endless, unafraid. You reach out, fingers grazing the air between you. For a moment, you feel their breath, warm and honest. This is freedom without thought, motion without reason. The landscape shifts seamlessly, mountains, rivers, desert, all blending together like one continuous exhale. You can feel the history beneath you, a heartbeat hidden under soil and stone. The ghosts of the empire ride here too, their laughter carried in the wind. You're not alone, but no one speaks. The silence is language enough. You ride through a storm of light rain. Each drop feels heavier than it should, like tiny memories falling from the sky. You taste one on your tongue. It's faintly sour, faintly sweet. Somewhere, the wind laughs. You laugh too, because now you understand why they drank. To touch something invisible without dying of awe. The world softens around you. The horse slows, breathing deep, steady. You realize the step itself is alive, endless, patient, breathing under you. The horizon rises and falls like a chest. The grass whispers something you can almost translate. It sounds like, "Stay a while." You dismount without meaning to. Your feet sink slightly into soft earth. The air is cool, clean, new. The dream feels older than memory, but lighter than waking. You walk toward the sound of trickling water, a small stream cutting through the grass. Its surface mirrors the sky perfectly. You kneel and see yourself, not as you are, but as calm as you wish to be. A bowl floats past, wooden, familiar. You reach for it instinctively. The water inside glows faintly, swirling like milk under starlight. You drink. It tastes like everything. Cold air, warm smoke, laughter, loss, peace. For a second, all time collapses. The first rider, the last emperor, the shepherd, the brewer, they're all here, breathing with you. The stream widens into stillness. The world stops moving. The horse stands nearby, watching. You feel no urgency, no fear. The sky above turns silver. You realize this isn't a dream about drinking. It's about remembering you are never separate from the wind. You sit, cross-legged in the grass, letting the quiet seep in. The taste of the water still lingers. Sour but kind. You exhale slowly. And for the first time in a long while, nothing hurts. The horizon hums like a lullaby. You close your eyes and listen. The steppe keeps breathing. The wind moves differently tonight, slow, tired, almost thoughtful. You sit beside the last fire of the camp. It's smaller than usual, barely more than an orange memory flickering against the dark. The others have gone to sleep, their breathing soft beneath blankets of fur. The night hums in low tones, steady as a heartbeat. You stretch your hands toward the heat, feeling it breathe back. Even warmth seems fragile now. The grass around the fire bends gently, whispering secrets you can't quite catch. Smoke curls upward in thin grey threads, vanishing before they reach the stars. You realize this is how empires end, not with silence, but with quiet motion. Nothing stops. Everything simply slows. The world doesn't mourn, it exhales. You take a slow sip of what remains in your bowl. The taste is faint, almost gone, but it carries memory like scent, carries warmth. It's the ghost of celebration, soft and forgiving. The sourness is milder now, the burn subdued. Time has turned even alcohol gentle. A lone horse stands nearby, its outline shimmering in the firelight. It doesn't move much, just shifts its weight, exhales, waits. Animals understand endings better than people do. They don't resist them, they just rest. You envy that kind of wisdom, the ability to stop chasing noise and accept the dark as part of the song. You poke the fire with a stick, watching sparks drift upward like tiny arguments escaping. Each one rises, glows, and disappears. They remind you of stories, laughter, empires, and lives, bright for a moment, eternal in memory, gone in form. The step doesn't bury things, it recycles them. The wind changes direction, carrying a scent of wet soil and snow. Somewhere far off, maybe it's raining, maybe it's thawing. You breathe it in, that distant freshness that smells like tomorrow. The Mongols used to say every dawn was reincarnation. You understand now? Even fires, once extinguished, feed something unseen. You pull your cloak tighter. The fabric smells like smoke and milk, proof of company, of warmth once shared. Every fiber feels heavy with stories. You wonder if all clothing remembers. Maybe every thread is a line of a song that no one wrote down, only wore until it faded. The embers dim to red eyes half closed. You lean closer, tracing patterns in the ash. Circles, always circles. The Mongols saw the world that way, no beginnings, no ends, only returns. The fire is smaller now, but it still glows. Continuity doesn't need brilliance, it needs presence. You listen to your own breathing, matching it to the rhythm of the crackles. Each inhale feels like borrowing light, each exhale like giving it back. The boundary between your body and the air blurs. You realize survival and surrender sound the same in this silence. A sudden gust makes the flame bow low, almost vanish, then recover. You smile. Even at the edge of exhaustion, there's grace. The night approves with a long sigh of wind through the grass. It feels like applause meant only for those who stayed awake long enough to hear it. You sit there until the fire shrinks to coal. Its glow turns from orange to dull red to memory. When it finally fades, the darkness doesn't feel empty, it feels complete. You close your eyes, the warmth still echoing behind your eyelids like an afterimage. The last fire of the steppe has gone out, but the night glows softly on its own. The horizon begins to breathe again. A pale line appears, thin as thread, stretching across the world. Dawn arrives not with drama, but with patience. The grass gleams with frost, every blade shining like a tiny blade of glass. The air tastes clean, stripped of smoke and stories. You stand slowly, the earth cold under your feet, your breath rising in ribbons. Morning has no hurry, neither do you. The camp stirs faintly, shuffling sounds, the low grunt of animals, the creak of saddles, life rebuilding itself from sleep. You hear someone cough, someone laugh softly, someone mutter about cold tea. The ordinary returns first, as it should. Greatness always waits until the chores are done. You smile. Even empires begin again with breakfast. You walk to the edge of the camp. The sun peeks over the horizon, shy but persistent. Its light spreads like spilled honey, coating the frost in warmth. The color changes everything, turning emptiness into promise, silence into invitation. The same land that felt endless at night now feels intimate. You pick up a small wooden bowl half buried in the dirt. Its surface is cracked, the inside still faintly sour. You rinse it with snow and hold it toward the sun. The reflection trembles. For a moment, the bowl looks like the sky holding itself. You think of the old man's words. The gods like mirrors. In the distance, riders begin to mount their horses. The sound of hooves starts soft, rhythmic, familiar. It's less a march than a heartbeat resuming. The wind carries their laughter forward, blending it with the cry of ravens overhead. Even motion feels meditative now, nothing urgent, everything connected. You take a slow breath. The smell of morning milk drifts from a nearby tent. Someone is stirring air rag again, starting the same process that has outlived kings, wars, and winters. Continuity hums in the background, indifferent but kind. You realize civilization is just repetition made graceful. The sun climbs higher, burning away the last traces of night. The frost melts into dew, soaking the ground in light. The air warms enough to smell like grass instead of ghosts. You stretch, shoulders cracking softly, as if the body itself remembers to exist again. Somewhere a song starts low, wordless, almost a hum. It rises slowly, spreading through the camp like smoke in reverse. It's not for performance, it's for presence. You hum along without meaning to. The tune feels older than language, but somehow perfectly familiar. You watch the horizon shimmer, the sky widening like a deep inhale. Every color feels fresh, pale gold, faded blue, soft gray. The wind moves again, but gently now, as if cautious not to disturb the calm. You realize dawn isn't the opposite of night. It's the night remembering itself in color. The horses begin to move out, their tails catching the light. The camp folds itself neatly back into the earth. No trace left behind except a few footprints and the lingering scent of smoke. You think of all the lives that passed here, dissolving into the same soil, feeding the same grass. Nothing wasted. You look down at your empty bowl one last time. Its wood feels warm now. You smile, whispering a toast to no one and everyone, to the wind, to the milk, to the memory. The words float upward, light as breath, before vanishing into the morning. As the riders disappear over the horizon, the steppe gleams wide and awake. The wind hums softly in your ears, not goodbye, just continuation. You close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the day begin again. The story ends, but the world keeps riding. The steppe is quiet now. The fires are gone. The horses graze where laughter once lived. The ground still smells faintly of milk and smoke, the aftertaste of life itself. You sit where the last embers cooled and feel the warmth that remains, small but stubborn. It's enough. The wind passes like a long exhale, brushing your cheek as if checking that you're still awake. You are, barely. The night has done its work. You think of everything that's past, the feasts, the songs, the stories told between sips. The empire rose, burned bright, then dissolved back into the grass. Yet something lingers, invisible but solid. Rhythm, the way a hand passes a bowl, the way a laugh begins before meaning, the way warmth survives the cold. Those small motions built the Mongol world, not the battles, not the banners, but the circles of people remembering they were alive together. You lift your hand, pretending to hold one of those bowls again. It's light, warm, and perfectly empty. Emptiness feels different now, not like loss, but space. Space for new mornings, new faces, new firelight. The Mongols called it the gap where the wind lives. You smile because now you understand. All things end so that sound can keep moving. Somewhere beyond sight, someone stirs milk in a leather bag. The rhythm is the same one you heard 1,000 years ago. The liquid breathes, foams, becomes alive again. A new night, a new warmth, another story waiting for its turn around the fire. History never stops. It just switches storytellers. You lie back on the cooling ground. The stars shimmer faintly, patient as old memories. They've watched this ritual forever. People trying to hold infinity in a cup, spilling most of it, laughing anyway. You imagine the gods smiling too, tipsy on devotion, forgiving every foolish sip. The wind hums softly, low and circular. It carries the scent of grass, snow, and smoke. It sounds almost like a song, the same one they sang when the empire was young. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're part of it. The cold doesn't bite anymore. The world feels round, whole, merciful. You remember the old man who said the sky hides under the river. You remember the shaman who swore stars were just gods wandering home drunk. You remember the laughter, the songs, the endless horizon. All of it drifts together in your chest. Warmth, sorrow, and a quiet that feels sacred. The steppe breathes with you now. Each inhale pulls in cold. Each exhale releases centuries. You realize the story never belonged to them. It belongs to the land, to anyone who listens long enough to hear it whisper. The bowl, the horse, the fire, they're all invitations, not relics. You open your eyes one last time. The horizon glows faintly pink. Dawn again. The same dawn that followed them, that follows you. You whisper into the wind, not loudly, just enough for the grass to carry it onward. Thank you. The world doesn't answer, but it doesn't need to. The quiet is the reply. The breath slows. The body softens. The story ends. And the steppe keeps breathing.